seating chart, elegant calligraphy on white card, listed every name but mine. Henderson, Hopkins, Jackson, but no Rhonda Mitchell. I approached a young woman holding a clipboard. "I can't find my table." "I'm the groom's mother." Her bright smile wavered. "Let me check with the bride." Moments later, Indy, radiant in her gown, swept over. "Oh, Rhonda," she said with honeyed sweetness that didn't reach her eyes. "Last-minute changes. Follow me to your special spot." Hope flickered. Maybe she had planned a thoughtful surprise. I followed her through the candlelit hall, past the family tables, past the dance floor. We kept walking. Finally, she stopped beside a single folding chair, tucked behind a giant plant, next to a silver garbage bin. I blinked. "I don't understand." Indy laughed lightly. "It's perfect, isn't it? Right by the trash. Just a little joke." My stomach dropped. "This isn't funny. Don't be so dramatic," she said, her voice sharpening. "It fits." When my son Damon appeared, I thought he'd stop it. Instead, he grinned. "Pretty funny, right, Mom? You're always so serious." Gus whispered. A few chuckled. Heat rose to my cheeks as I realized this wasn't a mistake. It was planned. I steadied myself, met their eyes, and said quietly, "Thank you both for showing me exactly where I stand." I lowered myself onto the cold metal chair, refusing to let them see me flinch. The folding seat wobbled slightly, and the trash bin beside it gave off the faint scent of leftovers from the cocktail hour. But I stayed put. Running would only give them the victory they wanted. Guests drifted back to the main hall, a few still whispering about the mother-in-law who couldn't take a joke. I sat alone in my navy dress, hidden behind a giant potted plant, and watched my only child celebrate without me. Each burst of laughter from the reception felt like a fresh cut, but something else began to rise beneath the hurt, a steady, focused anger. And with it came a thought I'd tried to ignore for months. Indy's pregnancy timeline had never quite made sense. If they were going to treat me like I didn't belong, maybe it was time to pay attention to the family I was supposedly being kept out of. I had plenty of time to think, 3 long hours in that corner. The more I replayed the past, the clearer the odd details became. It had been exactly 11 months earlier when Damon first introduced Indy, on my birthday no less. Within 6 weeks they were engaged. 3 months after that, she announced she was expecting. Fast, yes, but Damon was so happy I'd told myself it was just young love. Then came the birth. Little Marcus arrived a solid 8 pounds only 7 months after their first meeting. Premature, they said, but nothing about that baby looked early. When I'd once asked a gentle question, Indy bristled. "Some babies just develop faster," she snapped. "Maybe if you'd had more kids, you'd know." The remark stung. After Damon's father left, more children had never been an option. Now, from my hidden seat, I watched the baby being passed from one of Indy's relatives to another. 9 months old, alert brown eyes, striking dark features, beautiful, but unlike anyone in either family. Not Damon's clear blue, not Indy's green, no one else's either. Genetics can be unpredictable, I reminded myself. Don't read into it. But another memory surfaced. 3 months earlier, I'd dropped by their apartment to deliver misdirected mail. From outside the door, I'd heard Indy's raised voice. "I've told you 100 times, stay away." It's over. I'm married now. When she opened the door, her face was flushed, her hands trembling. "Just a telemarketer," she said quickly. "You know how they are." I'd wanted to see Marcus, but she ushered me off with a polite smile that didn't reach her eyes. And then there was the nurse's comment the day Marcus was born. "Such distinctive features for a newborn," she'd said, as if the little one already knew exactly who he was. Back then, I'd taken it as a compliment. Now, sitting beside a trash can at my own son's wedding, every word felt different. Maybe the nurse's comment had been more than small talk. As the reception wound down, the cake cut, the bouquet tossed, the first dance complete, Damon looked happier than I'd ever seen him. He spun Indy across the dance floor, guests cheering, completely unaware of the storm building inside me. Love can blind people. I learned that long ago, when Damon's father emptied our bank account and vanished with his secretary. Watching my son now, I recognized that same dangerous devotion. I stood at last, legs stiff from hours in that cold chair, and made a quiet decision. If Indy wanted to treat me like I didn't matter, then I would stop acting like someone who could be silenced. I crossed the room to where baby Marcus slept among the gifts and flowers. His tiny hand curled against his blanket, face peaceful and unmistakably unique, those deep brown eyes, that sharp little jawline. "Beautiful boy," I said aloud, just loud enough for Indy to hear. He's going to break hearts one day. Indy's head snapped around, a flash of something, fear, crossing her face before she forced a smile. Interesting. I brushed Marcus's hand gently. Such an innocent child caught in a story he didn't create. He deserved honesty. So did Damon. As I left the hall, I felt lighter. Not because the humiliation was gone, but because I finally had a purpose. I would find the truth, not for revenge, though wiping that smug smile off Indy's face had its appeal, but because my son deserved to know the real foundation of his marriage. 3 days later, I sat in my small kitchen, the yellow pages open, hands trembling. Private investigators. The idea felt reckless, but the memory of that folding chair and Damon's easy laugh pushed me forward. The first 2 numbers were dead ends. Then I reached Margaret Chen, a retired detective with a calm voice and practical questions. Family matters can be delicate, she said. But if there are real doubts about paternity, the truth matters. Are you ready for what you might learn? I pictured Damon's indifferent smile at the wedding. Our relationship is already broken, I answered. If I'm right, he needs to know. If I'm wrong, I'll accept it and move on. Margaret nodded thoughtfully. Then we'll need DNA samples from your son and the baby. That will tell us everything. The child's sample will be easiest, Margaret explained. A pacifier, a bottle, anything he's used. Your son's sample may be harder. My heart sank. Indy made sure I rarely saw Marcus. And Damon, well, I hardly saw him either. Let me start with some background work, Margaret offered. Sometimes answers appear before we even get to the test. For the next week, I lived in a strange limbo. I shelved books at the library, bought groceries, took my evening walks, yet my mind never left Margaret's investigation. The call came on a Thursday evening as I reheated leftover soup. Rhonda, it's Margaret. I've uncovered something. Can you come tomorrow? I barely slept. When I arrived, a thick folder waited on her desk. Indy wasn't fully honest, Margaret began. She told your son she lived in Portland and worked for a small marketing firm. True, but not the whole story. She slid a photograph across the desk. Indy at a casual outdoor gathering, arm around a tall, dark-haired man whose deep brown eyes and sharp jawline made my stomach lurch. His name is Connor Walsh, Margaret said. They dated for nearly 2 years and lived together for the last 8 months, until she left abruptly. I gripped the photo. The resemblance between Connor and Marcus was undeniable. The same dark eyes, the same crooked smile. When did she leave Portland? I asked, already dreading the answer. About 6 weeks before she met your son. The timeline hit like a hammer. Marcus was born 7 months after Damon met Indy. There's more, Margaret continued gently. I spoke with Connor. He's been searching for her for almost 2 years. He believes she was pregnant when she disappeared. My breath caught. Connor didn't know about Marcus specifically, but he knew she was expecting. What kind of person does this? I whispered. Someone skilled at starting over, Margaret said. Connor has a stable life, a good job. It seems Indy simply chose a different future, pieces locked into place with dreadful clarity. Indy left Portland, already expecting a child, found my trusting son, and convinced him the baby was his. I need that DNA test, I said, my voice steadier than I felt. Are you sure? Margaret warned. Proof could shatter your son's marriage, and possibly your relationship with him. I pictured Damon's easy smile at the wedding, the way he'd laughed as I sat beside that trash can. Our relationship is already fractured, I said. If I'm wrong, I'll know. If I'm right, he deserves the truth. Margaret nodded. Then we proceed carefully. If Indy suspects anything, she could vanish again, this time with the child. Later that afternoon, I drove to Damon and Indy's apartment with a small stuffed elephant for Marcus, hoping it might buy a few quiet minutes. But as I sat in the car, fear settled in. Not of Indy's hostility, but of what the truth might bring. What if the test confirmed everything? What if it didn't? Either way, nothing would ever be the same. I was still debating when the door opened and Indy stepped outside, pushing Marcus in his stroller. Indy stepped outside in yoga pants and a tank top, her blonde hair pulled into a casual bun, just another young mom on a sunny afternoon. But I knew better now. I knew about Connor Walsh in Portland and the carefully built story she'd spun around my family. She paused to chat with a neighbor, laughing easily while Marcus babbled in his stroller. Watching her, I felt a cold, steady anger settle in. She was good, too good, at convincing everyone she was exactly who they wanted her to be. But she'd miscalculated. She thought I was someone she could humiliate and discard. I drove home already planning my next step. Margaret was right. Caution mattered. But caution didn't mean surrender. It was time to stop playing the victim in Indy's tale and start writing my own. The chance arrived sooner than I expected. Sunday afternoon, Damon called. "Mom, want to come for dinner tonight?" Indy thought it'd be nice to have a family meal. I gripped the phone, suspicious. After the wedding, this sudden invitation felt unreal. Are you sure that's what she wants? Of course. We both feel bad about the seating thing. It was supposed to be funny. Maybe it went too far. Maybe? It had been cruel, but I swallowed the memory. This could be my best opportunity to collect the DNA sample Margaret needed. That's thoughtful, I said evenly. What time? 6. And Mom, could you bring those herb dinner rolls you used to make? For a moment, it felt like old times. Of course, I said. That afternoon, I worked the dough, letting the familiar rhythm calm my nerves. Marcus's sample had to be something he'd put in his mouth. A pacifier, a toy, a spoon. Margaret's instructions were simple, clinical, but the idea of deceiving my own family turned my stomach. At 6 sharp, I stood outside Damon's apartment, basket of warm rolls in hand, rehearsing a smile. Indy opened the door, her greeting pleasant but guarded. "Rhonda, come in. Something smells amazing." Inside, everything gleamed in shades of white and gray, elegant but cold. Marcus sat in his high chair, drumming a blue plastic spoon on the tray while Indy worked over an impressive dinner. "Can I help with anything?" I asked. "Just keep Marcus entertained." He's been fussy. I approached the baby carefully, struck again by how little he resembled Damon or Indy. Up close, the likeness to Connor Walsh was unmistakable. Marcus looked up with those deep brown eyes and offered a drooly grin that melted my heart. "Hey there, sweetheart," I whispered, letting his tiny hand wrap around my finger. "He likes you," Damon said, appearing in the doorway, his face lit with pride. For a heartbeat, I almost lost my resolve. How could I shatter this picture of happiness? Damon adored this child. Marcus was safe and loved. But Connor Walsh still didn't know his own son existed, and Damon was building his life on the line. The truth mattered. It always did. Dinner turned surprisingly warm. Indy asked about my library work, even complimented my roles. Damon laughed as he described their honeymoon and plans for Marcus's first birthday. "We're thinking a park picnic," Indy said, spooning pureed carrots toward Marcus. "That sounds lovely," I replied, watching as Marcus grabbed the spoon and popped it into his mouth, coating it with carrot and baby drool. "Perfect. May I help feed him?" I asked, my voice steady while my heart pounded. "It's been ages since I fed a baby," I said. Indy hesitated, then handed me the spoon. "Sure. He's getting pretty good at it. Sometimes he even wants to do it himself." For 10 sweet minutes, I fed Marcus, chatting with Damon about work and weekend plans while the baby smeared carrots everywhere, including all over the spoon. When he finally pushed the food away, I stood to rinse it. "I'll take that," Indy offered. "It's fine, I've got it," I replied, already at the sink. In one smooth motion, I rinsed the spoon, slipped it into the plastic bag hidden in my purse, and replaced it with a clean one from the dish rack. Less than 30 seconds, and I carried on as if nothing had happened. The rest of the evening passed in a blur of polite conversation. We looked at honeymoon photos, discussed holiday plans, and I held Marcus while he dozed against my shoulder. All the while, I felt the weight of that tiny plastic bag like a stone. When I left, Indy walked me to the door. "Thank you for coming," she said, her voice almost warm. "I want Marcus to know his grandmother." The word grandmother hit me hard, but I kept my face neutral. "I want that too," I managed. The next morning I met Margaret at a small lab across town. A cheerful technician named Lisa explained the process. "We'll compare the child's DNA with your son's. Results take 3 to 5 business days and are 99.9% accurate." 3 to 5 days, I repeated. It felt like forever. Margaret noticed my unease. Second thoughts? I pictured Damon's happiness, Marcus's bright eyes, Indy's parting hug, and Connor Walsh, still searching for a child he didn't know. "No," I said, "I need the truth." The wait was agonizing. Every phone call made my heart race. Finally, Friday afternoon, Margaret called. "The results are in. Can you come in?" My hands shook as I drove. When I entered her office, she slid a single sheet of paper across the desk. "Before you read this," she said gently, "know that you did the right thing." I nodded. "The test shows no biological relationship between your son and the child." Marcus is not Damon's. Even expecting it, the words hit like a physical blow. I sank into the chair, knees weak. Are you sure? I whispered. 99.9% certain. We ran it twice. Relief mingled with sorrow. I finally knew the truth. What happens now? I asked. That's up to you, Margaret said. You can speak to Indy privately, tell Damon yourself, or, given how they've treated you, reveal it publicly. But it's your choice. I thought of that folding chair and the wedding guest's laughter. I thought of Connor Walsh, who deserved to know his child. And I thought of Damon, living inside a lie. I need time, I said. But even as the words left my mouth, a plan was already forming. For 2 weeks, I carried this secret like a heavy stone, knowing the next move was mine. Every interaction with Damon had become an act. Every smile, every casual question about Marcus carried the weight of a secret I could barely contain. Then the next invitation arrived, this time from Indy herself. Rhonda, she said brightly over the phone, I have a wonderful idea. Marcus is so close to walking. What if we celebrate his first steps together? Both families, everyone in one place. Both families. My grip tightened on the receiver. Her parents would be visiting, her sister too. A perfect little gathering to showcase their happy family. She had no idea she was handing me the stage I'd been waiting for. That sounds lovely, I managed. What can I bring? Just yourself? And maybe those dinner rolls again. My parents haven't stopped talking about them. Saturday afternoon arrived gray and damp, matching the heaviness in my chest. Inside my purse, tucked into a manila envelope, were the DNA results, Margaret's full report, and a photograph of Connor Walsh. The man who looked far more like Marcus than my own son. The apartment buzzed with guests when I arrived. Indy's parents, Richard and Patricia Moore, radiated quiet wealth. A cashmere sweater that likely cost more than my month's groceries. A watch that flashed in the light. Her sister Melody was a younger reflection of Indy, polished and confident, cooing at Marcus as he reached for her earrings. You must be Rhonda, Patricia said with a poised smile. We've heard so much about you. I wondered what exactly they'd heard, given my seat by the trash at the wedding. It's wonderful to meet you, I said evenly. Thank you for including me. Family is family, Richard added, shaking my hand. If only he knew how ironic that phrase would soon feel. For the next hour, I played my role to perfection, laughing at cruise stories, nodding at retirement jokes, while keeping one eye on Marcus. He was indeed on the brink of walking, pulling himself up with determined little grunts. Come on, buddy, Damon coaxed, crouched 6 feet away with his arms outstretched. Come to Daddy. The word Daddy pierced me, but I stayed silent. Marcus wobbled, let go, and took one careful step, then another. Cheers and applause filled the room as he toddled forward. 5 triumphant steps before plopping down on his bottom. Damon scooped him up, beaming. Indy's eyes glistened. I wish we could freeze this moment forever. I stood, my heart beat slow, not sped, as if my body understood the inevitability. Actually, I said, my voice carrying over the happy chatter. This might be the perfect time to share something important. The room hushed instantly. Indy's smile faltered. What is it, Mom? Damon asked, Marcus balanced on his hip. I reached into my purse, fingers closing around the manila envelope. I've recently learned something everyone here deserves to know, especially you, Damon. Indy's face drained of color. Rhonda, she said sharply, what are you doing? Something I should have done weeks ago, I replied, drawing the envelope into the open. I'm telling the truth. I opened the envelope and held the paper high enough for everyone to see the official letterhead. 2 weeks ago, I said evenly, I had a DNA test done for Marcus. The room went silent. Damon's face shifted from confusion to disbelief, and then to something darker. Mom, why would you? Because I needed the truth, I cut in. And the results confirm it. Marcus is not your biological son. Gas filled the room. Patricia covered her mouth. Richard muttered something under his breath. Melody stared, wide-eyed. But it was Indy's reaction I watched most closely. Her face crumpled, hardened, then crumpled again. That's impossible, she managed, but her voice lacked conviction. The lab found 0 biological connection, I continued. And my investigation uncovered more. I handed Damon a photograph. This is Connor Walsh, a software engineer in Portland. He's been looking for Indy and his child for 2 years. Damon's eyes flicked from the photo to Marcus, then back again. Who is this? He whispered. Indy's composure snapped. You had no right to spy on my family. Your family built on a lie. My voice stayed calm. You deceived my son about his own child. Stop! Damon said quietly, still staring at the picture. The room fell silent again as Marcus fussed in his arms. Finally, he looked at Indy. "How long have you known?" She opened her mouth, closed it, then whispered, "Since before I met you. I was already pregnant when I left Portland. Connor wanted to marry me, but when I met you..." Her voice broke. "You were kind, successful. I let you believe the baby was yours." Damon's tone was flat. "And for over a year, you let me live that lie." He looked down at Marcus, who reached for his face with tiny hands. "Does Connor know?" "He suspected," I said when Indy stayed silent. "My investigator spoke to him. He's been searching ever since." Indy's parents erupted with questions. Melody stared in shock. Through it all, Damon sat motionless, holding the child he'd believed was his. At last he turned to me. "You could have told me privately," he said. "Why here?" "Why now?" I met his eyes. "Because she's done this before. She's skilled at turning situations to her advantage. I wanted witnesses. No doubt, no rewriting." He nodded slowly, then handed Marcus to me and stepped out onto the balcony. Indy faced me, her voice a sharp hiss. "You've ruined everything. Are you happy now?" "No," I said softly, rocking the now-crying baby. "You ruined it the moment you built it on lies. I only revealed the truth." I looked around the room, at the shocked faces, the chaos, and felt an unexpected weight lift. Not triumph, not glee, just a quiet relief that the pretending was over. 3 months later, I stood in my kitchen, kneading dough for dinner rolls. Not because anyone had asked, but because the simple rhythm had become my meditation. The truth was finally out, and whatever came next would rest on reality, not deception. That quiet evening felt like the first real breath I'd taken since the Saturday, when everything unraveled. The weeks that followed had been as chaotic as I'd imagined. Indy's parents left the night of the revelation, Patricia barely speaking to her daughter. Melody lingered, trying to help, but even she seemed shaken by the scale of the deception. Within a week, Damon filed for annulment, citing fraud. DNA evidence made the process swift. Indy fought at first, but her attorney soon explained the futility of her case. The hardest part was watching Damon say goodbye to Marcus. He had spent more than a year believing he was that child's father. Love doesn't disappear just because biology proves otherwise, he told me during one of our new weekly dinners. "I keep thinking I should resent him," Damon admitted. "But when I look at him, he's just a baby. He didn't choose any of this." I finished the thought for him. "Exactly." Connor Walsh arrived from Portland within 2 weeks. I'd expected to dislike him, but he was exactly as Margaret's report described. Steady, decent, and genuinely searching for the child he hadn't known existed. His first meeting with Damon was awkward yet respectful. Two men bound by the same betrayal, trying to find a way forward with dignity. "I never knew she was pregnant when she left," Connor said. "If I had, I would have moved heaven and earth to find her." Damon nodded stiffly. "What are your plans now?" "I want to be part of my son's life," Connor answered. "I'll support him in every way, but I also know you've been his father this past year." "I won't tear him away." The custody arrangement they reached was careful, but fair. Connor relocated to our city and took primary custody so Marcus could transition gradually. Damon would have regular visitation until Marcus was old enough to understand. Indy fought that decision bitterly, but her case was weak. Fraud, no stable income, and a documented pattern of deception. Last I heard, she'd returned to Seattle to live with her parents. Her relationship with them as strained as ever. Tonight, none of that mattered. Tonight, Damon was coming to dinner, just the two of us. No Indy watching our words, no tension, only a mother and son. The doorbell rang at exactly 6. Damon has always been punctual. "Something smells amazing," he said, stepping inside. For a moment, he was simply my boy again, the child who could never resist a fresh dinner roll. "They're almost ready," I replied, moving aside so he could enter. "How was your week?" "Pretty good," he said, settling into his old spot at the kitchen table. "I had lunch with Connor and Marcus yesterday." I paused, still adjusting to the idea that my son would willingly spend time with the man who had unknowingly replaced him. "How's Marcus?" "Great," Damon said. "Connor's wonderful with him, and patient with me. He lets me be part of things even though he doesn't have to." I set the basket of warm rolls on the table and sat across from him. "That must be complicated," I said. He buttered a roll with the same careful precision he'd had as a child. "It is. Some mornings I wake up wondering what Marcus is doing, if he needs anything. Then I remember He trailed off. "You're not his father," I said gently. "But for a year, you were everything a father should be." That love wasn't wasted. It just found a new direction. Damon looked up, eyes so much like his father's. "Is that what happened to you?" he asked softly. I held his gaze, feeling the warmth of the kitchen and the quiet strength that comes when truth finally replaces secrets. When Damon asked, "When Dad left, did your love for him just get redirected?" The question caught me off guard. We'd never spoken honestly about his father's disappearance. "In a way, yes," I said. "All the love I would have given him, I poured into raising you." "I'm sorry," Damon replied suddenly. "For laughing when Indy humiliated you. For choosing her version of reality over yours." Tears pricked my eyes. "You fell in love, Damon. People do foolish things when they're in love. Trust me, I know something about that. But you're my mother," he insisted. "I should have protected you." "You were protecting what you thought was your family," I told him. "I understand." He reached across the table and took my hand. "You saved me." If you hadn't uncovered the truth, how long would I have gone on? Would I have spent years raising another man's child, never knowing? "I don't know," I said softly. "But Marcus deserves to know his real father. Connor deserves to know his son. And you deserve a life built on truth, even when it hurts." We ate the rest of dinner in comfortable silence, the kind I'd forgotten we could share. Afterward, Damon helped me wash dishes, slipping back into the easy rhythm of our old routine. "I've been thinking about dating again," he said at last. "Not right away, but someday." "That's healthy," I smiled. "You have so much to offer. Take it slow, ask more questions, and maybe introduce the next one to your very smart mother." He laughed, hugging me tight. "I need someone who'll tell me the truth, even when it's hard." After he left, I sat with a cup of tea, reflecting on the journey that had brought us here. 6 months earlier, I'd been the unwanted mother-in-law, seated beside a garbage can while my family laughed. Tonight, I was simply Damon's mom again, trusted, valued, heard. The truth had hurt. Marriages ended, families fractured, an innocent child caught in the middle. But the truth also set us free. No more eggshells, no more pretending cruelty was humor, no more accepting treatment that diminished my worth. My phone buzzed, a photo from Connor. Marcus, arms outstretched, laughing as he strode across a playground. "Thought you'd like to see how steady he's getting on his feet." I smiled at the little boy who would never be my biological grandson, but would always have a place in my heart. He was learning to walk on his own, away from the lies of his early life. In a way, so was I. I texted back, "He looks happy and healthy. Thank you for including me." Connor replied almost instantly, "You made it possible for him to know his real family. We'll always be grateful." Real family, not the one built on convenience and deception, but the messy, complicated, honest kind that grows when people choose truth over comfort. Tomorrow I'll go to work at the library, maybe call a friend, maybe wander the farmer's market. Simple pleasures, mine to choose, no approval required. Some victories don't come with fanfare. Sometimes the greatest triumph is the quiet satisfaction of knowing you chose courage over comfort, truth over convenience, dignity over lies. That night, I slept better than I had in months. Now I'd love to hear from you. What would you do if you were in my place? Have you ever faced a choice between hard truth and easy silence? Share your thoughts in the comments, and if you'd like another dramatic real-life story, stay tuned for the next video coming up on screen. Thank you for watching and for walking this journey with me.